Hi everyone, welcome to day 2 of the 25 Days of Christmas card series. Today we're going to be making a Florida inspired Christmas card because I do live in Florida and I'm sure some of the people that watch my videos aren't all living in ice cold places during the winter months. So all I'm doing here is I'm creating a mask that's actually supposed to be my sand and that circle is going to be my sun. So just to keep it in place, I put some masking tape, and then I'm actually making the sky out of broken china. And I'm just using a finger dauber, and it kind of blends itself. Right now it doesn't look too blended, but once it dries it gets a little bit better. And there's not really any technique to doing this. I think it does require some practice. For me, it kind of took a while to figure out how much pressure I need to put on the sponge. But once you got that, you're pretty much good to do this. And all I did was I made it a little bit darker at the top and lighter as I went down. And here I'm using the paper that I used to cut out the first mask, and I'm using that to be the mask for my sky now. And I will go ahead and color the sand with antique linen. And the same thing, I make it darker at the top and lighter as I go down. So I finished my background and now I'm going to move on to the stamping. Here I have some Memento Tuxedo black ink. So I'll just ink that up and stamp it. It's a little Santa in the sand. And I stamped this on some regular white cardstock, which was a bad idea because I decided to use Copics and I just wanted to compare the paper because if you have specialty paper for your Copics, I have the Spectrum Noir, which I think is one of the cheaper brands, but it's still expensive, so I wanted to see if it truly does work, and it really does. If you have Copics, I recommend just buying the paper because this worked. I mean, it blended, but it really bled out, and it required a little bit more blending. So that's why I'm only using two. I mean, it really is a small image, so you don't need more than two, but I think if you do use this kind of paper, you don't really want to oversaturate. And I found later on with the other images that you see in the corner up there, I found it was easier to first start with my darker color and then blend it with my lighter color. That way I wasn't oversaturating it. And then later on, you'll see that I clear embossed my palm tree, and that kind of helped keep the ink from spreading. It was kind of like a barrier. So if you do just have regular cardstock, it will work because it does blend, but you might want to maybe clear emboss your image and then color, so that way it doesn't bleed out as much. colored all those Santas down there and cut them out. And then now what I'm going to do to make it look a little bit cleaner, because if you are left-handed, you will know the struggle of cutting. Ugh, it's horrible. But anyway, this marker kind of just makes it look like I cut it perfectly. So I just go around all the edges with that black marker. Now this is a wow embossing marker, and what that does is it allows for me to put some places where I want to put my sand, and I'll just use the marker over that, and then I'll pour this embossing powder over it. It's called Stickum embossing powder, and what it does is once it heats up, it turns into a glue that can stick, like glitter and other things to it. So here I'm just pouring the embossing powder over the places where I put my marker. And then once I heat it up, it's going to turn into glue. And then I'm going to add some sand that I got at my beach because I live in Florida. So I thought that was a nice added touch to this card. It kind of makes it unique that it's real sand. So here when I heat it up, it just makes it sticky. And you gotta be fast with this because it does dry kind of fast. So I'm sprinkling the sand over the paper, and then I'll pour it back into that cup. And then once you heat that up again, the sand will permanently stick to the card. And even when you rub your fingers on it, it won't move. So it's a really cool product. This is a penny black stamp, and then I decided to clear emboss it because, like I said, it helps keep the ink within the barrier. And since this was on my background, I didn't want it to bleed. It was okay with my Santa because I ended up cutting him out, but since this was in my background, I really wanted to avoid bleeding. So if you can see, there are little lights on the palm tree, and I decided to color them in rainbow. And here I'm just coloring the trunk with the two colors of brown. And then up there for the leaves, I show you darkest to lightest. This is a good trick, like I said earlier, because you saturate the paper less. But for that, you don't get as good of a blend. But that didn't really matter because it was in the background. So I'm just going to finish up that palm tree and then bring back my Santa just to see if I like where this is going, and I do. And if you're noticing, in a few of my videos I do this, I apologize. I don't really realize that I'm changing cards because I'm making multiples of these. But some of them I had a sun, some of them I left just as sky. So on the ones that I had a sun, I went back with my Copics and colored them yellow. And then I add my little Santa, and I decide to use pop dots on him. Before I do that, I take the Santa hat off. I kind of thought it was awkward just hanging on his hand like that, and I thought it would be cuter to cut it off and put it in the sand, and that way it also looks like Santa's waving at you. So I'll just use regular glue on the hat, and then I go back with some glossy accents and add some of that to the sunglasses, and then I add some Wink of Stella on the red parts of his shirt and the white parts of his hat. And then that will complete the main image of this card. So we'll move on to the card base here. I have some yellow cardstock, and this is an A2 sized card. So I made a border of 1/4 inch for the yellow part. And then the card base is 5.5 by 4.25. And then I add the panel that we made. And this will be a top folding card. And I thought it would be done here, but I think it just needed a sentiment. And I didn't have any sentiments that matched the warm Christmas. So I spelled out with my litter stamps warm wishes, and I clear embossed that to match the palm tree. And at this point, my glossy accent still wasn't dry, so it's probably a good idea to do that at the end. But I wanted to finish these up, so I went ahead and stamped a Very Merry Christmas on the inside of the card with some Memento Tuxedo Black. And then I punched out with my Martha Stewart Presents punch, a little tropical looking present, and I glued that down next to the sentiment. And that will complete my card. I hope you liked it. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for day 3.